Today I'm going to share more about my visual impairment and my experience with that and how it's affected my life. I'm also going to try to explain what I can and can't see and how this affects me. And then at the end I'm going to mention a couple of things that can be changed that are small that can improve design for people with visual impairments to help them. So first I want to explain where my visual impairment fits within the vision spectrum. On one end of the spectrum we have 20/20 vision, or it's considered perfect vision, and then on the other end of the spectrum we have people who are totally blind and they can't see anything. I'm not considered to be blind at all. I would be considered visually impaired, which means that my vision is not perfect, but I also can see things. And I would also say that my visual impairment would be considered to be mild or moderate. Now I want to tell you more about my specific visual impairment. I was born with a rare eye condition called Aniridia. I've never actually met anyone with Aniridia, and I've chatted with a couple of people on Facebook Messenger who have contacted me, which was interesting. Aniridia is basically where the iris in my eye didn't fully develop when I was born. And so in turn, my pupils are extra large. One of my pupils is 5 millimeters, whereas the other one is 3, and the average person's pupil is only dilated to 1 millimeter. This means that a lot of light gets into my eyes and I'm very sensitive to light. I also have a rare case because the doctors say that I really only have aniridia in my left eye. Usually someone with aniridia has it in both eyes, and for some reason they say that my aniridia is what you might consider partial aniridia. So the result of one of my eyes seeing better than the other, I have a lazy eye, and it goes to the side a lot, and it gets really confusing to people sometimes. I remember specifically in junior high one time when someone was like, "Why are you looking at me?" And I felt so embarrassed because I was like, "I'm not actually looking at you. Do you think I can see you?" No, I'm looking straight in front of me. That is not the only time that situation has happened to me. You can get the muscles in your eyes tightened to make it look like you are looking forward, and I've actually had that done a couple of times, but it can be kind of expensive and my muscles just keep loosening, and so we'll see if I end up getting that in the future again. I have had 4 surgeries on my eyes. The first one was when I was 18 months old, and then the second one was when I was about 8, 9, 10. I also recently had cataract surgery on both of my eyes, so they did those one eye at a time. It was right before I started grad school, and I had my cataracts removed. I'm pretty young to have cataracts, and I remember being in the room with a large amount of elderly people around me. The doctor has also told me that I have a high risk of getting glaucoma with my condition. He has already been monitoring me and making sure that my pressure is good, so that we can prevent that from happening too quickly. So as I mentioned before, light can be a really big problem for me because my eyes are so dilated. It's like when you go to the eye doctor and you get your eyes dilated for a checkup, mine are always just dilated that large. So if you can imagine, light can be pretty sensitive to me, especially when there's light glares. Most of the time when I see light, like a light bulb or even the sun, I see glares that come out of the light, and that can be really distracting to try to see what I'm actually trying to see. Another symptom that I get a lot is headaches. I feel like I get headaches behind my eyes quite often, and a lot of times I just have to go into a dark room and close my eyes and let my eyes just get a little bit of extra rest from seeing all of the light. My vision is pretty blurry on a regular basis, especially when it comes to text or seeing anything that's fine, like being able to thread a needle or reading a label on a bottle or any type of packaging that isn't designed well. And if you want me to be able to read a menu at a restaurant that's on the wall or anything in that nature, well, forget about it. That usually doesn't work. Usually you have to ask for help or find another way to adapt, like reading a printed menu or looking online for a menu. As I recently have finished graduate school, a constant problem for me was always being able to read the whiteboard or the chalkboard, or even when things are being presented on a projector, those can be even more difficult for me to read. So I'll have to ask for accommodations where maybe the professor can send me the presentation ahead of time so that I can see it on my own laptop while they're going over it on the big screen, or sitting really close on the front row so that I can actually see the board, or asking my professor to write in a color that's easier to read, so not like red or green or anything, maybe just black or the darker blue colors. Another struggle with text is things that are far away. So if there's a poster or a billboard and you're trying to get my attention and you're not really paying attention to the size, the color contrast, the background, that kind of things, then I guess I'm not going to be able to see it. And then the last thing I would say that really makes it difficult for me to see things is a busy background or visual noise around the thing that I'm trying to see. For example, if there's something that has a distracting picture in the background and that has really low contrast text on it that isn't very large and doesn't read very well on it, and they start adding outlines and stuff like that, it just becomes visual noise and it starts vibrating and my eyes can't really handle reading that. Color is a big issue because if you put yellow text on, say, like an orange background or red background, you would think people wouldn't do that, but there are definitely people who do. Then that becomes difficult to see. Or even if you were to put yellow on like a brown background or blue on a black background, really just depends. So there has been a lot of research and studies that actually prove that color contrast and being able to see things on it is really a big issue. As a graphic designer, this is really something that I studied a lot and that I've really noticed with my own eyes. So what's considered the highest contrast would be black background with white text. So there's what's called levels of contrast, and they get assigned numbers, and you can follow these guidelines to help you better understand what someone might or might not be able to see. The goal is to be able to have at least 70 to 80% contrast level between the two colors that are being used. Another thing that could really help that people don't tend to think about is spacing. So when you have lines that are close together and the tracking becomes low, then it's going to become more difficult for someone to be able to read because the words will all meld together and just look like a bunch of jumble. But if you were to space it out a little bit and give the eyes a little bit of breathing room, then it will make it a little bit easier on the eyes. Another big thing is also considering what typeface or font to use when you're designing with text. I know that when I look at something and I have a lot of thins and thicks in a text, it becomes very difficult for me to read between the thin and thick lines of the typography. When it's a simpler and bolder font, it's a lot easier for me to read the letters, and also my eyes tend to like uppercase. I know some people who have a difficult time reading all caps because it can be kind of straining on your eye to see such a bold text all at once. So it really just depends on the person. So trying to find a system that works for a wider range of people can be challenging. In design school, we have always been taught that serif fonts are easier to read for body copy. So if there's more than one paragraph or a longer body of text, that would be considered body copy. I actually personally can read sans serif fonts a lot easier because my eyes don't have to decipher the flourishes and the serifs that are on the font, and it just breaks it down to a more simple, minimalistic typeface. And as far as serifs go, I actually really prefer slab serifs. It makes it really easy to read them because they're very prominent. Alright, so that's everything I have to share with you today, but I am just wondering, anyone who's out there watching this, maybe you comment below and let me know what you can see and what struggles do you have and what are your preferences with type and color and contrast and all of that kind of thing. Even if you're someone who's considered sighted, everyone has different preferences, and I'm wondering what your preferences are. I would love to hear your feedback so I can take it into consideration while I'm doing my designs. Thanks so much to everyone who watched this video, and I hope you'll come back for some more. If you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, you'll always be notified when I have new videos coming up. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye!